Today's episode of the Mountain Matchups podcast is brought to you by JW Sheds and Carports. Whether you're looking for a new shed to store your tools or a sturdy carport to keep your vehicle protected, JW's has you covered. Located at 10 Pallet Road in Candler, North Carolina, JW Sheds and Carports offers high-quality, durable structures to meet all your outdoor storage needs. Give them a call today at 828-777-8401 to learn more, or stop by and check out their selection in person. That's 828-777-8401 for JW Sheds and Carports, your trusted source for sheds and carports in Candler.
You're listening to the Mountain Matchups podcast, your home for Western North Carolina high school sports.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Mountain Matchups podcast. Boys, we got a big-time episode today. This is our special holiday edition of the Mountain Matchups podcast. Here in a little bit, we're going to have Coach Luke Coleman from the Brevard Blue Devils joining us by phone. We'll get to that in a minute. How's it going, boys?
Going great, my man. How you doing? How you doing, Corey?
Man, I'm fantastic. Hope y'all are.
You look fantastic as well.
I appreciate that, Warren. So do you.
I know.
So Dylan couldn't join us tonight, unfortunately. He had some Thanksgiving family duties, which we understand. We're wishing all of you a happy Thanksgiving. Make sure to eat a lot of turkey. And let's jump right into it, boys. So the game of the week from last week, we picked Brevard versus Bunker Hill, and what a game it was. Brevard knocks off Bunker Hill 37-29, giving Bunker Hill their first home loss since 2021. Bunker Hill started off strong, going up 8-0. But then Jason Willis Jr., who we touched on last week, he's been a stud for Bunker Hill the past two seasons. He scored again after that, but a penalty brought it back. And then their defense was able to get a big stop on fourth down and forced a missed field goal by Bunker Hill. Brevard started to find their composure from that point, and late in the first half, they score on a first and goal rushing TD. Late in the first quarter, they scored on a first and goal rushing TD by Nyrell Skinner in the extra point to make it 8-7. The Bears were able to drive back down the field in the half, but they missed another field goal. So Brevard is down 8-7, and like they always do, they make their second half adjustments, and they came out guns blazing in the second half, outscoring Bunker Hill 30-7 in the third quarter. But Bunker Hill, being the great team they are, would not go away without a fight. They put up 14 in the fourth quarter to draw within 8. That 8-point margin would hold as Bunker Hill threw a pick on their final drive, sealing the win for Coach Coleman's Brevard Blue Devils.
I mean, I think I saw in that game, you mentioned Jason Willis Jr. I think he had 90 rushing yards and 87 receiving yards, basically did everything he possibly could to keep Bunker Hill in the game after that onslaught in the third. And help get them back in the game. So props to him, and props to Brevard as well for coming out in the second half.
Yeah, I think he had around 250 total yards. So Jason Willis Jr. showed up for sure. He didn't get held under 90 yards like I predicted, unfortunately. But with a player like that, you'll take the win. Give him his stats, and you'll take the win.
And
yeah, absolutely.
This is why I tuned in, listening on the radio. And I can tell you last time I've ever listened to a high school game on the radio. That was pretty fun. I was pumped about it.
Yeah, we were listening to was it the White Squirrel radio station? Is
it
AM station in Brevard?
Yeah,
had a couple good old country boys up there giving us the play-by-play, but they did a great job. It was exciting to listen to, even over the radio.
They were locked in, man. It was a good show.
Oh, they got fired up. They were fired up.
On that final drive, whenever Bunker Hill threw the pick, those guys were just like, "Oh, he picked it! He picked it! Brevard's going to win the football game."
That's awesome, man.
So it was great to listen to. We were hyped for Brevard, and we're also hyped, boys, because we were able to get a phone call interview with Luke Coleman, who's the head coach of Brevard. And let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say. So we now welcome on a very special guest to the Mountain Matchups podcast. It is the head coach for Brevard, Coach Luke Coleman. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir.
I want to start with your hiring in 2022 at Brevard. They were coming off a couple of tough seasons by their standards prior to you joining. You're now in your third season at the helm, and your program has had back-to-back seasons as undefeated conference champs. Did you feel pressure coming in as a first-time head coach, and what steps did you have to take to get Brevard back on top?
I think there's pressure wherever you're at. At a place like Brevard, they expect to win. So, of course, me personally, I wouldn't want to be at a place that they didn't expect that. So Was there pressure? I don't think there's any more pressure than the pressure I put on myself because, if you do this for a living and you're into it enough, you care about the kids, you know how hard they work, and you want them to be as successful as possible.
Yeah, and you've done a great job building them back to that top. And all season long, your team has been able to make adjustments during the game, and it seems to flip a switch, particularly at halftime. What is that process like for you and your coaching staff during a game to recognize those changes you need to make and communicate that effectively to your players?
Oh, man, I've got a great group of assistant coaches. I couldn't ask for any better being a first-time head coach. I'll be honest with you there. They're all a really good group of guys, and they do a really good job. Offensive coaches have done a really good job the past 2 weeks at halftime of making adjustments based on what they're giving us. And we've been out there. We went out 2 weeks in a row and had unbelievable third quarters, which has really helped us get the victory.
Coach, this is Corey here. It's great to finally get a chance to talk to you. We appreciate you coming on. I just want to talk a little bit about the identity of your football team. So we know that you were a standout player for Pisgah, and we know that they're traditionally known as a hard-nosed football team that runs the ball physically and likes to hit people in the mouth defensively. So how much of your background and that kind of culture plays into what you've instilled in your teams as a coach?
Well, I think it does. I mean, anytime, that's how I grew up, playing the game, and that's how I coach the game. And, for all those years I've coached defense, that's how I've, learned defense and coached defense. And, we're an attack 4-3 defense. And, that can sometimes tend to give up a big play here and there, but for the most part, we're going to attack downhill and we're going to read our keys and get after you. When I got here, it's the same thing. It's that compete mentality that we have, and we want to compete in everything we do. And, this game's still a game you can go out there and, for lack of a better term, be a bully and get away with it. So,
right.
that's what, football's still a hard-hitting, physical football, physical game, and we try to go out there and play that type of football every week.
Yeah, and I saw that firsthand this year earlier in the season. So going back to that, your team faced off against the eventual MAC champion and 3A1 seed Erwin Warriors. Like I was saying, I was in attendance for that game, and being an Inca boy, I was rooting for y'all all the way, but unfortunately y'all fell short in that game. But since then, your team has now won 8 in a row. You now find yourself in the third round of the state playoffs. What do you think your team learned from that loss to a tough Erwin squad that led to the run you're on now?
I told Coach Pruitt, and I love Coach Pruitt. He's a good football coach, and they've done a really good job over there. Last year when we beat them, it kind of turned our season around, and this year when we lost to them, it turned our season around. The biggest thing in that game was, we had some younger players on defense that hadn't played a lot, and they had some hard lessons to learn in that game of how things need to be done. And, it's hard to – you can preach it all you want, but until they learn it the hard way, you're not really going to learn it. And that's why I like having a tough non-conference schedule so that we can get those lessons out of the way.
Right.
At the end of the day, I mean, they're probably the best football team in the mountains, in my opinion. Take it for what you will. Everything they do on offense is just, especially on offense, because they can spread you out, they can throw it, they can run it. The quarterback extends plays. He doesn't run it a lot, but he can get out of tackles and wiggle around, and he keeps his eyes downfield. And they're a very, very tough football team.
All right. Hey, Coach, this is Jason. We appreciate you coming on. We picked Brevard versus Bunker Hill as our game of the week on our last episode, and you're able to give Bunker Hill his first home loss since 2021. Your rushing attack with Thompson, Skinner, and Griffin continue to do what they do with nearly 250 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Your defense stepped up when you needed it to and sealed the game with a pick. Can you talk a little bit about what those players have meant to your team this season and what the celebration was like with them after the game?
All those guys, we got a really good football team. And I talk about that with the other guy every week. You don't know which one of them's going to step up and make plays, but we've got a lot of playmakers. I mean, there's been a couple of weeks that 8 people on our team's caught footballs. I mean, we're able to spread the ball around. Nyrell and Braylon are a good tandem in the backfield because if one gets tired, the other can go, or vice versa. And, Coach Reed at Bunker Hill, he does a heck of a job, and they were well prepared, and it was a heck of a football game. And I didn't tell my kids about that home winning streak they had after we won the game because I didn't want to put any pressure on them. But I knew when we got up, I kept telling them, it's not over, it's not over, it's not over. And, those kids fought hard and played hard, and it came down to the last, minute and a half when we got that pick and were able to get in victory formation and get out of there. So, just real proud of the entire team. I mean, we've been in some tight games this year. Erwin, Knoxville Catholic, DR the first time, and Bunker Hill, and even Anson at halftime. It was a game, and the kids respond well to that, and they're going to play their butts off for 48 minutes, or if it takes more, it'll take more, and we just got to go out there and make plays.
Yeah, so I got one last question for you, Coach. It's about the big game on Friday night. So you guys saw East Rutherford earlier this season and beat them on the road. Now you get to host them for a big playoff game on Friday night. We know you don't want your team to come in thinking this is a win just because of the last game. So how do you balance keeping them focused on what's at hand while still using that familiarity with East Rutherford, the game plan there?
I don't. I told them Monday, if I have to motivate you, there's a problem, because you got the opportunity to play in December, practice in December, and play in December. And that, you're already, practicing on Thanksgiving is something not a lot of teams get to do. But when you're practicing December and they're playing Christmas music on the radio, you've done something. And, motivationally speaking, I mean, personally, and as I've showed the kids, I didn't feel like we played that well the first time we played them. We played well enough to win, but there were some mistakes and stuff we had out there that, we tried to fix since that game, and we got to fix this week going into the game. Otherwise, it could go the other way.
Yeah, well, Coach, we're certainly excited to see what happens on Friday night, and we appreciate you again for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to talk to us for a bit, and good luck against East Rutherford.
Yep. Good luck,
Appreciate
Coach.
what y'all are doing. Really do. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, Coach. We're big fans. Good luck Friday night.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all.
Another big game that we had in Western North Carolina was Erwin versus Smoky matching up in the playoffs. Erwin was able to beat Smoky 35-14.
Yeah, and Caleb, I'm going to touch on this game. I was there, and the scoreboard 35-14. Doesn't sound really that close, but it was definitely a lot closer than what the scoreboard showed. Smoky fought hard. Aiden Johnson, of course. Malachi McNeely, Jay Stillwell, QB Jarek Jones. I mean, they tried. The fact that Smoky can't really throw it that much, that kind of hurt them, kind of become one-dimensional. But you got to play with what you got, and they battled and made it a fun game. From Erwin's side, Caden Engel, just torched the Smoky D. Goes 15 for 20 for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rushes in for 2 more touchdowns.
Wow.
And I just want to shout out junior running back Chavion Irby for a minute. Kid only had 8 carries for 26 yards, which, I mean, that doesn't sound like much, but he runs so hard and definitely wore out Smoky Mountain, and that kid takes advantage of every opportunity he gets at running back. He had to come in for Milky. Milky had some more ankle problems, I believe. I don't know that for a fact, but he was definitely hurt, came to the sideline. But, yeah, I love that kid. Love how hard he runs. He's a big old bulky kid. He just drags defenses with him. So, yeah, I had to shout out him. Lawson Reynolds ends the night playing through a nagging injury that he got. I believe that was in the first half towards the opposite sideline. I'm not sure what happened. He ends the night with 71 yards, 2 touchdowns. On defense, he had 13 tackles with 9 being solo. Then Michael Petty, of course, dominated per usual, 117 yards receiving and no receiving touchdowns, but he did have a big kick return for a touchdown. And that time that happened, that really just took the complete air out of Smoky. Smoky had a big answer right before that to keep the game close, and I was like on the edge of my seat, like, holy crap, they're going to keep this a game. They were playing their hearts out, but then Petty has the big kick return, ends the night with 82 yards returning and that kick return for a touchdown. And you could hear it almost out of the Smokies away side, just complete air out of the whole stadium. But Jaden Holder on defense showed up with 12 tackles, 9 of those being solo on the night. Key seniors Brendan Phelan and Judah Dayton also combined for a whopping 24 total tackles.
Wow.
Boys, that's getting after it.
Yeah, it is.
Your senior year, it's win or go home. Don't know what those kids' plans are for the future, so it could potentially be their last game. And to say they balled out is an understatement. And again, I'll say Erwin's just loaded with talent on both sides of the ball, man. I'm really interested to see how their game's going to go against West Charlotte.
Yeah, I know Erwin is a little banged up going into that game, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can hold on. It helps that they're hosting at home, and they've still got a lot of other playmakers out there, so we'll have to see what happens, as they face West Charlotte. Warren, I think you have an issue with Mitchell because we started this podcast, and you were dogging them for losing to Avery. And then you picked them to lose in the first round. They won. And then in the second round, you thought Mitchell was going to beat Corvey in Community. What happened, Warren? 42-6.
They did not even come in the same stratosphere as Corvey and Community. I watched this game Friday night. From the beginning, it was basically over. Cam Johnson rushed for 116 yards, 2 TDs. Noah Best rushed for 93 yards for Corvey and then TD. On defense, like Adrian Scott and Reginald Greer had 4 combined sacks. Mitchell's quarterback actually throws a nice ball. It's really hard to throw a nice ball when you're constantly on your back. It kind of reminded me as watching Bryce Young last season for Carolina. That poor kid had no chance. He was constantly pressured. This was a straight whipping, which I should have saw it coming, but I thought I'd pick Mitchell to lose 2 straight weeks. I was like, all right, prove me wrong. No. Corvian's undefeated 12-0. They have a huge matchup against Eastern Randolph, which is also 12-0. And I think this is the first time in a long time where a 12-0 team is going to be playing an away game in the third round of the playoffs because Eastern Randolph's also undefeated, obviously. Poor Mitchell ended the season on a sour note. They started off strong, lost 3 of their last 4 games. And Corvian, they're just a wagon, man. They're winning their games. Their season average winning, they're winning 39 points a game.
Wow.
And they're just killing it right now. And they killed Mitchell. So
unfortunately Mitchell goes home in a 42-6 loss. They'll bounce back next year as long as Warren isn't picking them. I'm pretty sure he might be the jinx for Mitchell.
Yeah, stay off the Mountaineer train, Warren.
I'm going to jump on it again. They're eventually going to hit.
They've had some good teams.
Yeah, they had some good teams until we started this podcast, and then all hell broke loose. So.
Just a quick recap of the other playoff scores around the mountains. Dudley 42, Reynolds 0. We touched on the injuries that Reynolds was facing and that we were rooting for him. But like we expected, Dudley is too much of a wagon for Reynolds to overcome. So they lose 42-0.
And that just goes to show you how much Max Guest meant to that team, man. And then also, like we've touched on the first episode, losing that quarterback, just transferring to Crest, that's 2 hard of blows, man. Sucks for him.
Yeah, I mean, and even beyond the team stuff, you got to think about the hurricane affecting everybody. And It was just a tough season overall for everyone in the mountains, but especially Reynolds, given everything involved. But the Rockets aren't going anywhere. If we know that, they've got a solid program. They'll be back in the thick of it next year, and good luck to them in the offseason recovering and bounce back next year.
Yep.
That team showed a ton of heart this season. I'll give them that.
Without
doubt.
Absolutely. Yep. Eastern Randolph, which Warren just mentioned, is facing off against Corvey and Community. They blanked Cherokee 42-0. I will own that one. I thought Cherokee might come out and give them a little bit of a game. I was way off. Like I said, Cherokee loses 42-0. So unfortunately, they're going home. Murphy 21, Christ the King 11. Warren, what happened to Christ?
Yeah, that was my upset pick of the week. I told you guys Old Christ was going to give them a game, and they did. Murphy was on upset alert there for a little bit, but they were the superior team, and Christ couldn't pull through at the end. But I'm proud of Christ the King. They played really well, all things considered. I think they're like the 19 seed or something. Everyone thought they were like 3, maybe 4 touchdown dogs. Nah, they came to play. I think that was 21-11, whatever you said. Yeah.
21-11.
And I never said that it was going to be a blowout, Warren, but I told you, you ain't beating the Murphy Bulldogs, son.
We'll talk about Murphy here in a little bit.
Yeah, so again, Murphy 21, Christ the King 11. They kept it close, to Warren's credit, I guess. North Lincoln 54, Wes Henderson 21. That's another one we touched on, guys. Wes Henderson was just too banged up. North Lincoln was too strong. And so, unfortunately, Wes Henderson's also going home. And with that, it's time for the Mountain Matchup Certified Dogs of the Week.
Yeah, I'll start us off with Avery Thompson from North Henderson. He won both his matches in the heavyweight class in a tri-meet on Thursday. He beat Hendersonville's Kevin Saldana and Lincoln Charters Chase Absher by fall. The Knights won both their duels on Friday. Thompson also defeated Owens Christopher Lynch by fall, a minute 17 into the match. He's just an absolute beast. So he is my dog of the week.
And boys, I got to go with Caden Engel from Erwin. That is my certified dog. Engel tallied 4 total touchdowns in a 35-14 win over Smoky, completing 15 of 20 passes for 195 yards with 2 passing touchdowns and rushing for 2 more touchdowns. Tell me that ain't a certified dog.
And I'm going to go with Bailey Staten from Polk County. Staten scored 25 points, shooting 69% from the field, including 5 for 7 from deep, in the Wolverines' 72-42 win over East Henderson. She also scored a team-high 18 points in the win over Madison on Tuesday. Bailey Staten, certified dog. So, fellas, we got to jump into it. We touched on Murphy a little bit, and we've given Robbinsville some praise over the past couple weeks. If you remember, I think our upcoming game of the week is going to be Robbinsville versus Murphy. Robbinsville comes into Murphy with a 7-6 record. Murphy sitting at 11-1. Murphy averaging 34 points a game to Robbinsville 21. But don't count out Robbinsville. Don't count them out. They got a chance. Warren, tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, they previously played on October the 11th. Murphy ended up winning that game 14-7, but Robbinsville was leading at the half 7-6. That's got to be on Robbinsville's mind. Obviously, you look at the records: 11-1, 7-6. I think we can all agree Murphy's probably the more talented team. But when you previously play a game and you stick with them, you're leading at halftime, you know that you have the potential to win that game.
Yep.
So, this isn't going to be a walkover at all. This is going to be a tough game. And I look forward to seeing what happens with it.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and touch on that game too. I think that obviously, small town 1A high school football, it's going to be a battle in the trenches. Who can win that battle? I guess we'll see Friday night. But yeah, like Warren touched on, them two played earlier in the season. Murphy was able to end up pulling it out. But yeah, Robbinsville, their record 7-6 might not show, what they've done in years past. But if there's one thing that Robbinsville is going to do, is they're going to play physical. They're going to play hard. They're going to play fast. They're going to have their fan base behind them, I guarantee it, especially just traveling right down the mountain, So I'm excited to see where that game goes. I think I'm going to have to go with Murphy, though, pulling this one out again. I'm going to say 21-17.
Warren, who do you think is going to win that game?
I'm going with Robbinsville. I think although they lost the previous outing, I think they got a little bit of confidence. I don't care what their record is. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. They stuck with them previously. I know Murphy runs the living crap out of the ball. Looking at they average 260 rushing yards a game, which is absolutely insane. But I'm going to go the polar opposite of Corey and say Robbinsville wins 21-17.
What else is new?
Well, against my better judgment, I'm siding with Warren on this one. I'm picking Robbinsville in the upset. I think that previous game with Murphy earlier in the season showed them that they can hang with them. So, the 14-7 loss, that's not that bad. You can hang with the team with a score like that. Murphy does have the edge in a lot of the stats. 261 yards to 153 yards rushing. Passing's pretty equal at 93 and 88.
Both teams are going to run the football for sure.
Yeah, but Murphy has 100 yards more total yards per game. So
right,
they're the more prolific offense. They have more tackles per game, 73 to 54. But throw all the stats out the window. I am going Robbinsville, baby, with the upset over Murphy in our game of the week.
And this game, like we said, it's going to come down to who can control the clock. Both teams are going to definitely try to. And it's going to come down to who can get stops. It's going to come down to who doesn't make costly mistakes, whether it be false starts, jumping off sides.
It's going to come down to turnovers.
Fumbles. Yeah, it's going to come down to turnovers. If you don't turn the ball over, you can control the clock, and you can play solid defense, 4 quarters, which, as any football game goes, that should be a recipe to win. But we'll see. I'm pumped about that game.
Yeah, watch out for Bryce Adams averaging 137 yards a game. He could be a problem for Murphy. So, our game of the week. Murphy versus Robbinsville. It's going to be a good one, I hope. Go Robbinsville. All right, let's take a look at the other playoff matchups we got coming up in Western North Carolina, fellas, and we'll do our playoff picks like we did last episode. I've been keeping a tally. Warren is in last place, and that's all that matters right now. He's dead last. We have number 10 seed East Wilkes at number 2 Mountain Heritage. Boys, what do you got?
Mountain Heritage. I got them maybe even going all the way to the finals. The team is so loaded, it's absolutely ridiculous. They're going to win comfort. It's not going to be like a 40-point win, but I got them something like 31-14.
Yeah, Warren, I'm gonna have to agree with you for once on this one. Gotta go with the Cougars, man. I think that they win comfortably as well. I'm gonna say 21-7. I think East Wilkes makes it a game for a little bit, but I think Mountain Heritage just has too much firepower.
Yeah, I'm also going Mountain Heritage, and honestly, boys, we hadn't talked about them enough so far on this podcast. Maybe
we really haven't.
Maybe we should dig into that game a little bit this weekend and break it down for next week. Mountain Heritage, again, they seem like a wagon. I'm riding with Mountain Heritage. We have number 17 East Rutherford at number 9 Brevard.
Well, I'm only going to make this pick because whenever I pick someone to win, they lose. And we just had Brevard's coach on, and he's a great dude. So I'm picking East Rutherford in a jinx game. East Rutherford is going to win 24-18.
Yeah, it's the old reverse jinx. I like it.
It's the reverse jinx for old coach.
Does anybody have a guess who I'm going for?
It better be the Blue Devils. What are you doing, son?
I'm going with Coleman's Blue Devils, baby.
Yeah.
35-14. They're too good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer than that. But I think, again, Brevard is going to make those adjustments where they need to. In the second half, they're going to take the game by the throat and win and keep advancing in the 2A state playoffs. So good luck to Brevard.
Good luck, coach.
We have number 8 West Charlotte at number 1 seed Erwin. Erwin's a little banged up, but they are hosting. What do you guys think about that one?
I'm going to go with West Charlotte. Erwin's really banged up. Not sure if Milky's going to play or not. If he doesn't, that is a big loss.
Yep.
West Charlotte's extremely athletic. They just play ball a little bit differently over there. I'm not saying that we don't here in the mountains, and I would love to see Erwin beat them, but I don't know. I just think West Charlotte might be a little bit too athletic for him. I'll go West Charlotte 28, Erwin 24.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go West Charlotte on this one. I would say, normally if it was anybody but the Warriors, I'd be picking this upset. Nah, all jokes aside, with all the injuries that they've got, I just don't think that they've got the edge. And maybe those kids come out healthy. I don't know. I think it'll be a good game regardless. Hard fought. I'm gonna say West Charlotte 35, Erwin 21.
Ooh, two TDs. Oh,
despite Erwin's injuries, I think the home field advantage carries them through. I think they show the resilience of a true champion, which they've been all year, and they take down West Charlotte. We've talked about how the athletes are a little different once you get out of the mountains. I feel like it's kind of like you look at the Big Ten versus like an SEC type matchup where you got the Big Ten, the bruising, hard-nosed, ground and pound type football versus the flashy SEC. A lot of times the SEC wins that one, but every once in a while the Big Ten gets one over on them. So in this one, I'm taking Erwin over West Charlotte. I think they got enough horses in the stable to take them down, and they advance to the 4th round of the playoffs.
So what you're saying is the mountains just have more heart. Erwin's going to have more heart.
Hey, we know the mountains got heart, baby. That's what we're all about.
Hell yeah.
All right, fellas. I think that wraps it up for today. Unfortunately, again, we didn't have Dylan here to do his hoops recap. He's stuffing his face with some turkey. You guys got some big Thanksgiving plans coming up of your own?
Same as always, baby. Try and kill a bug.
Warren, are you surprised that Corey's going hunting?
That's all he does. Is he actually going to kill something that's not off someone's back porch?
Listen, I've killed one this year. Okay, I've seen 2 deer today.
It was probably a deer walking in your front yard, and you shot it out your window or something.
No, I live. I'm not going to disclose that address, but there's no deer.
Unfortunately, no deer around.
Well, there are, but not at mom and dad's now.
You should go wrestle one. That'd be really cool.
I want to see you wrestle one there, state champ.
I'll wrestle a damn deer. As long as don't like a doe. A doe is one that doesn't have antlers, right? I ain't getting caught up in no antlers. Kidding me right now?
And speaking of wrestling, soon we're going to have you give a full breakdown of all the wrestling action going on in Western North Carolina, Warren.
It's Landon Pope time.
It is Landon Pope time, baby.
Basically, going to have to go to a lot of Inca meets, Pisgah meets, Tuscola. Maybe not Tuscola, definitely Pisgah and Inca. Going to definitely have to travel down to Robbinsville because that's wrestling country down there.
Oh, yeah.
I think they beat Inca like 3 straight years. They don't play around in Robbinsville.
Fontana Classic.
Yeah, they don't mess around down there or over there down yonder.
So that concludes the latest episode of the Mountain Matchups podcast. Boys, thanks for joining me, and thank you again to Coach Luke Coleman from Brevard for jumping on an interview with us. Hope you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving. Eat a lot of turkey, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone who's listening. We'll see you next week. Love you guys.
Love y'all.
Love y'all. Peace.